Comics Cauldron. This is manager Jordan-MICHAEL. How can I help you? Oh, hey boss. I'm going through it right now. We've got a lot of stuff. Those estate donations don't mess around. I don't know. I've got a bunch of Golden and Silver Age stuff to still go through and a bunch of random crap. By closing. That's not possible. Can I get overtime? Hello? You're welcome for making you money. Thank you so much, Manager Jordan-MICHAEL. I am so glad we have such mutual respect for each other. Me too. Holy.
Hello, my name is Nicole Hornaday.
And I'm Andrew Lee Creech.
And welcome back to the Panel Jumper.
In theory, comics are the ideal platform for diverse voices and perspectives. But like all mainstream media, the reach and volume of those voices are often dictated by the gatekeepers.
If an editor, publisher, or even distributor does not share in an artist's pursuit of identity and diversity, creative expression is often squelched. This has been witnessed time and time again for Black creators in American comic book culture since the inception of the medium.
But comics have always offered us tremendous opportunities to shape how we see the world. Meet Orrin Cromwell Evans, the first Black publisher of American comics. Up until 1947, Evans made a career as an investigative reporter, focusing on stories of social injustice. However, he saw tremendous potential in comics to spread positive images of Black culture and set about publishing the very first Black comic book anthology, All Negro Comics. The first issue, drawn in part by younger brother George, featured a wide range of humor and adventure and presented readers with positive portrayals of Black folks, like police detective Ace Harlem and comical characters like the Dudleys.
Perhaps the most significant feature was the character Lion Man, an American-born, college-educated scientist tasked by the United Nations to protect the Magic Mountain, a secret and priceless uranium deposit located somewhere on the African Gold Coast. Dressed in native garb, Lion Man utilized state-of-the-art technology to protect his charge from exploitation by warlike white oppressors.
Sound familiar? 1965, Lowndes County, Alabama. Local Black citizens, along with staff members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, under the leadership of Stokely Carmichael, formed the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, or LCFO, in an effort to register Black voters in a county that was 80% Black. They adopt the Black Panther as their mascot.
July 1966, the great chieftain of Wakanda, T'Challa, aka the Black Panther, makes his first appearance in number 52 of the Fantastic Four, created by comics legends Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Black Panther is touted as the first mainstream appearance of a Black superhero in American comics.
October 1966, Oakland, California. Political activists and organizers Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale officially formed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, named for the LCFO mascot after watching Stokely Carmichael speaking in Berkeley. If comics historically reflect the beliefs and values of the society which drew and read them, the imagery of the Black Panther was a cosmic signifier of a political and cultural shift away from the nonviolent protests of the civil rights movement from the 50s and towards a more direct call for action in the mid to late 60s and beyond.
In retrospect, it's impossible to not draw comparisons between Lion Man and Marvel's Black Panther. All Negro Comics didn't last beyond its first issue. A second issue was reportedly set for printing, but newsprint vendors refused to sell to Evans, and he eventually withdrew all efforts at publishing his series. What became of All Negro Comics number 2, no one knows.
Brother of the Order Manager Mike, welcome!
Thank you, brother of the Order Manager Jordan-MICHAEL. I came as fast as I could. What have you found?
A gift from the past.
Holy...
My sentiments exactly. Do you know what this is?
Are these the Lost Originals? Do you realize what we have here?
Literary vibranium.
These have to be published immediately. Who are you going to use? Dark Horse, Fantagraphics?
I don't intend to use anyone.
Ah, self-publishing. Smart.
No, I don't intend on publishing them at all.
Well, then I will.
They're not yours to publish either, Brother Manager Mike.
We'll share in the proceeds. Listen to me. We send these to print, we will make a fortune. Not to mention the headlines.
You can't put a price on history or heritage. These should never be sold or published for money. We need to treat these with honor as it is a living history. It glows and resonates with it.
Halvesies?
I know you know better, so I'm going to pretend you didn't say that.
1960s America saw triumphant highs and devastating lows. Stokely Carmichael's rallying call for Black Power had stoked a fire, and the shameful racial imbalance in all areas of American society was exposed. Thus, the early 70s ushered in a re-energized cultural sensibility as the demand for black representation and political inclusion leapt from podiums and protest signs to vinyl and the movie houses.
In an effort to capitalize on the newfound black empowerment, Hollywood began cranking out films that positioned black characters as protagonists, pitting them against the various white characters.
And thus, blaxploitation cinema was born. With titles like Superfly and Shaft, blaxploitation cinema gave us our first glimpse of big-screen black superheroes, just without the label. In its height, comics publishers were also looking for a way to cash in on the blaxploitation craze. Black Lightning, Ty Rock, John Stewart, Brother Voodoo, Blade, and
A Man Called Luke Cage. Created in 1972 by Archie Goodwin, Roy Thomas, and John Romita Sr., Luke Cage's attire gave off unnerving echoes of slavery. And thanks to his cringeworthy catchphrase, "Sweet Christmas," Luke Cage was a full-on racial stereotype.
Despite his costume missteps, however, Cage's fictional origin story of a man who was wrongfully incarcerated, then tortured and beaten in prison, did speak to the very real mistreatment of inmates and America's growing incarceration rates, circumstances brought about in part due to the passage of the Rockefeller drug laws which disproportionately affected people of color.
Luke Cage was revamped in 1992. Simply titled Cage, writer Mark McLaurin's short-lived run attempted to humanize Cage, toning down his jive talk and shedding his open shirt and shackles for a red short sleeve and jeans, thereby tearing himself away from his blaxploitation roots.
Literally. McLaurin's run only lasted 20 issues, but the man with impenetrable skin and superhuman strength continues to stick around.
Netflix's live-action original series saw Cage donning a hoodie sweatshirt invoking Trayvon Martin and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Becoming a cultural touchstone, Luke Cage was what every black man in America wanted to be: bulletproof.
How do we even know this is the real thing? Do we have provenance?
Sadly, none. It was in a box of estate sale detritus.
We're gonna have to call in an expert.
The appraiser?
The appraiser. We've recently come into possession of something that...
McLaurin wasn't the only black writer to give depth to a white-created superhero. Christopher Priest's late 90s run of Black Panther completely revitalized the character, giving him nuance and authenticity while generating new characters and material which would become integral to the wildly successful 2018 film.
Victories like the Black Panther film showed the value and potential of putting black superheroes into the hands of actual black creators and storytellers. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's step back to the early 1990s and discuss Milestone Media.
Debuting during a period of unprecedented prosperity in the industry, Milestone, originally owned and overseen by Dwayne McDuffie, Derek T. Dingle, Dennis Cowan, and Michael Davis, was an unknowing participant in an explosive genesis of multiple superhero universes from numerous independent publishers.
Their branding said it all, as the initial quartet of titles Icon, Hardware, Static, and Blood Syndicate established a shared universe of urban superheroes.
Though emphasis was placed on black protagonists, Milestone was a creative space for the most culturally diverse comic book storytelling ever seen. However, they faced countless challenges in the marketplace, as many retailers were reluctant to invest in titles they saw as exclusively for black audiences.
By the end of the 1990s, the enormous comic book speculator bubble burst and led Milestone to cancel many of its poorer-selling titles in 1996, ultimately shutting down their comic publication a year later, but not before fans saw popular characters like Static Shock integrated into the DC Universe proper.
The shuttering of the Milestone universe was a setback for Black voices, and reminded us that the struggle to hold creative space for people of color in comics was ongoing.
From 19th century minstrel shows to Laurence Olivier's performance of Othello, white portrayal of black bodies and identities has plagued American society for generations. But what happens when the shoe is on the other foot?
Marvel's All New, All Different, and Marvel Now rebranding initiatives broke all the rules in an effort to gain new readership through diversity. Marvel's new titles shook up the status quo of their universe by placing underrepresented people into the spandex, capes, and armor of their most popular heroes.
A female Thor, a Korean-American Hulk, and probably most significant, Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, became our Black Captain America. This massive relaunch also saw Miles Morales, an Afro-Latino teenager who assumed the role of Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe when Peter Parker was killed off, officially included in the Marvel Standard Universe. You know, Andrew, one of these days we really should do an episode all about the multitude of comic book universes out there.
Oh, good luck with that. Afterwards, Miles slung into the MCU proper with the 2018 animated spectacular Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And oh boy, did he come correct.
That movie is so good.
That soundtrack though?
The three of them swinging through the trees.
Oh, that all-black suit with the red spray-painted logo? Ooh, everybody and their mama saw that movie. He said, hey, hey, hey.
Sorry. Race reversals were often viewed as derivative, uninspired knockoffs, believed to be the result of blatant pandering that offered nothing new to a particular character or canon.
But as we've seen, with care, these characters can give unique perspectives to well-tread territory while illuminating something new in the old.
And after 2 weeks and nearly 600 miles, that little piglet was finally returned home to his family.
That's one well-traveled little piggy, Mark.
It sure is, Diana. I guess this is the last time he'll be oinking around on his own. Lastly this evening, the curators at the Library of Congress were shocked and amazed this week when they received an anonymous parcel that contained comic book art that was thought to have been lost for over 70 years.
Dating back to the late 1940s, publisher Orrin C. Evans's second issue of All Negro Comics was assumed destroyed when white newsprint companies refused to supply the black publisher.
Efforts are underway to preserve the nearly 30 pages of aged words and pictures in anticipation for a touring exhibit next year during Black History Month.
We may never know where Lee and Kirby got their idea for Black Panther, and it may not matter.
No, Andrew, I want to know.
Settle. The history of black superheroes is long and complex, and though many are invented by white creators with sometimes dubious motivations, they inherently create meaning when placed into a socio-political context. Writers and artists like Christopher Priest, Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Reggie Hudlin, and Ta-Nehisi Coates have brought a certain authenticity and humanity to these characters that only a melanated person can.
One can only imagine what's to come. Though we'll probably never get to read All Negro Comics #2, nearly 75 years later, we just might get to see Orrin C. Evans' dream realized.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on The Panel Jumper.
Don't intend to publish them at all.
Then I will.
Hang on. Stop. Sorry.
That's good, gentlemen. That's nice and tight.